Marvel's Ironheart reactions are in, but you're racist if you don't like it.
When South Park decides to roast something, it's usually because that thing has become so absurd, so detached from reality, that it practically demands to be mocked. And recently, the creators of South Park set their sights on Marvel's infamous flop, Ironheart. The animated series, known for its unapologetic and brutally honest parodies, didn't hold back. What unfolded wasn't just a joke about a bad TV show, it was a cultural takedown of a media disaster, with Dominique Thorne caught directly in the crossfire. In their signature style, South Park turned the failure of Ironheart into a viral punchline, and people were loving every second of it. But behind the laughter was a real message. Ironheart didn't just flop. It exposed the widening gap between Hollywood's corporate agenda and audience expectations.
Has to really reckon with what that means for the life that she wants to lead.
It's very short-lived. It's brushed over really quickly, and she kind of reverts back to her old self.
But one thing is for certain about this series is that all agendas aside, let's be very real about this. There's a lack of character development. The directing, the producing, the writing is just way off. It makes no sense at all, and it's very lackluster. There's no depth to it all.
Does it defy the haters, or is it another skippable series? It's always about you, right? It's always about the audience. It's amazing. It doesn't matter if it's the 2024 election or whether it's a Disney streaming product. It's always about like how evil is the actual voters? How evil are the audience? Ironheart is practically unwatchable. Toot toot, Jerry laughs. Yes, there is an alphabet character. They admit Ironheart sucks, but look, they're getting ready to blame you for it because Ironheart fulfills low expectations with weak narrative, poorly written characters, and dull action.
People are going to look at this and they're going to think that this is them replacing Iron Man for like a diversity reason. Now, you might say that's not true. You might say that's not fair. You can say whatever the hell you want, but that's what people are going to look at and that's what they're going to say.
Ironheart might be one of the worst executed ideas ever in the MCU because under all that garbage was actually potential.
Yeah, and it's like the real Tony Stark, it's like back somehow, and there's like a moment where she's flying through and he's like, who is that? And she's like, I'm Ironheart, Mr. Stark. and he's like, I like that girl. And then he like goes to do something else. Like that would be like the level of something that I think would possibly happen.
Ironheart is back, this time going to an uncomfortable place for view.
Ironheart is the biggest L of Marvel of all time. The reactions are just spectacular. Supposedly he's smarter than Tony Stark, bites an electric wire, sells her soul to gain magic powers, uses new powers to steal. What did the writers mean by this? Smoke detector beeps.
I understand why she's frustrated. That's how I feel watching her interviews.
How do you feel about the impact that she's having on young Black girls? And I'm going to be completely honest, on Black women.
You know, this is yet another area that's getting vibrant. It's getting full in the way that it should be.
Ironheart is practically unwatchable.
This show basically keyed their car, their mom, and in their bowl of cereal in the morning.
Her getting more screen time than War Machine ever did is crazy. The greatest thing about the show is it's actually being released. So it sure seems like a lot of people aren't liking the show. This is clearly piggybacking off of Iron Man. And so you are going to have people that are automatically distrustful because of that.
So in this, I'm not sure what they're meant to be, because this character isn't to be confused with Slug.
Slug, our hacker extraordinaire.
Who is also the exact opposite in the same show. I'm really confused.
See, it deserves your attention. Ironheart deserves your attention. That's how I knew. I was like, oh, they are desperate to get people to watch this show. After I did my reaction, I kept getting, hey, it wasn't that bad. I just watched it. Hey, I just watched the first 3 episodes. It wasn't that bad.
Natalie AI thing seems utterly preposterous and ridiculous. And even for an MCU show, I'm finding it to be a little bit of a bridge too far to go. The heist crew, all lame. Every single one of them, all lame.
Everybody loves Iron Man. Everybody. Shitting on and belittling a character that everybody loves in your new movie.
It's a TV show.
Nobody cares. Shitting and belittling a character that everybody loves is probably not going to score you a lot of points with your audience.
86% on Rotten Tomatoes.
How?
You were saying.
It's just not going to be successful.
The parody episode opened with a hilarious scene that immediately hit the mark. A character clearly inspired by Dominique Thorne's Riri Williams was shown standing in front of a high school science fair project labeled Ironheart 2.0 with the subtitle, "Because representation is more important than story." The judges, parodies of Disney executives, immediately give her first prize before even hearing what the project does. The satire was sharp, pointing out how Marvel seemed more focused on promoting identity buzzwords than actually crafting a compelling character. Viewers laughed, but the criticism was clear. Dominique's role wasn't earned, it was handed to her. Throughout the episode, the Riri-inspired character keeps insisting she's smarter than Tony Stark, more powerful than Iron Man, and more important than the fans themselves. But every time she tries to prove her genius, she ends up making everything worse. From building a malfunctioning suit that launches her into a brick wall, to giving inspirational speeches filled with corporate slogans that confuse everyone, the character becomes a walking symbol of Marvel's overconfidence. And yes, it was funny, but it was also brutally honest. South Park was calling out not just the failure of the show, but the fact that Dominique Thorne's performance and Marvel's marketing strategy felt fake, forced, and out of touch. What made the parody even more effective was how South Park didn't have to stretch the truth. They simply amplified what people already saw in Ironheart: the lack of character depth, the absence of emotional stakes, and the overwhelming reliance on telling us why the character was important instead of showing us. It all played perfectly into the parody. The animated version of Dominique's character kept declaring how iconic she was, even as everyone around her was visibly bored or confused. And that's exactly how audiences felt when watching Ironheart. It was a show that never gave them a reason to care, yet demanded applause anyway. In another standout scene, the South Park kids are forced to watch the fictional Ironheart reboot as part of a school diversity program. As the show plays, the screen flashes messages like, "The most important character in MCU history," and "Don't criticize or you're problematic." Cartman groans, Kyle falls asleep, and Stan whispers, "I miss when superheroes had flaws." The satire wasn't subtle, it was a direct jab at the way Marvel and Dominique Thorne responded to criticism, not with openness, but with deflection. Rather than admit the show had storytelling problems, they pointed fingers at the audience, and South Park wasn't having it. The episode even mocked Marvel's desperate marketing tactics. In a fake commercial within the show, a voice announces, "Watch Ironheart Season 2, featuring surprise guest villain Mephisto, played by Sacha Baron Cohen, because we've officially run out of ideas." It was a brutal but hilarious call out of how Marvel tried to salvage the flop by throwing in popular villains and A-list actors to distract from the weak core of the show. And once again, South Park showed how ridiculous it looked to viewers. No amount of casting gimmicks could fix what was fundamentally broken. As the story unfolded, the Riri-inspired character began blaming the fans for everything going wrong. "Maybe if people weren't so threatened by my brilliance," she says in one scene, "they'd understand the deeper message." But the townspeople parodying average fans push back. "We wanted to like you," one says. "We gave you a chance, but you didn't earn our respect. You just acted like you deserved it." That line hit home. It summed up the core issue with Dominique Thorne's portrayal of Ironheart. The audience didn't reject her because of who she was. They rejected the performance because it lacked authenticity. It didn't feel earned, and that's something even South Park couldn't let slide. Even the meta commentary in the episode was cutting. A mock Disney executive, animated to look suspiciously like Kevin Feige, appears in a boardroom yelling, "Why isn't this working? We told them it was amazing. We hired influencers. We did Twitter ads." And another executive says, "Well, sir, maybe people just want a good story." The first exec snaps back, "Nonsense," or "We'll just accuse the audience of being wrong. That always works." It was dark humor, but painfully accurate. The parody didn't invent the narrative, it just put a spotlight on the exact behavior audiences have been calling out for months. And Dominique Thorne, her animated counterpart, spends the entire episode insisting she's not the problem. But every attempt to prove her worth ends in failure. Whether it's a failed invention, an awkward motivational speech, or trying to lead a superhero team that immediately quits, the parody version of Riri is portrayed as someone who talks a big game but can't deliver. That's the uncomfortable truth that the real actress never seemed willing to face. Instead of growing from feedback, Dominique clung to the idea that any criticism was unjustified, and South Park called her out for it in the most brutal way possible by turning her character into a joke. The public's reaction to the episode was swift and intense. Social media lit up with praise for South Park's brutal honesty. Fans who had been frustrated with the MCU's recent missteps finally felt seen. The parody didn't just mock the show, it validated the audience's disappointment. And Dominique Thorne, despite having the opportunity to take the criticism constructively, once again missed the mark. Rather than engaging with fans or reflecting on the show's failure, she leaned further into the same dismissive narrative that got her in trouble in the first place. It was a missed opportunity, and South Park made sure everyone saw it. But the satire didn't stop there. In the final act of the episode, the Riri-inspired character tries to reboot her image by releasing a music video called Iron and Important, where she dances in front of floating social media comments that say things like, "You're so brave," and "Ignore the haters." Meanwhile, the townspeople are seen turning off their TVs, unsubscribing from streaming services, and saying things like, "We're done." It was a brilliant metaphor for the current state of Marvel fandom. The constant spin, the refusal to admit failure, the attempt to mask weak content with loud marketing. Fans are over it. The message was clear. You can't force legacy, you can't demand loyalty, and you definitely can't expect audiences to stick around if you keep giving them content that doesn't respect their intelligence. Dominique Thorne may have been placed at the center of a massive media machine. When that machine broke down, she didn't step up, she stepped away. And the backlash wasn't just about one show. It was about the growing frustration fans feel when their love for a franchise is taken for granted. South Park didn't need to exaggerate the failure of Ironheart, the facts were already there. The low viewership, the lack of buzz, the absence of emotional engagement, all the show did was wrap that reality in comedy and show it back to the world. And what the world saw was a performance that didn't land, a character that wasn't earned, and an actress who refused to evolve. The result? A roast for the ages. In many ways, Dominique Thorne's downfall wasn't inevitable. She had the platform, the resources, and the opportunity to grow into something memorable. But instead of rising to the challenge, she leaned on pre-written narratives, corporate safety nets, and surface-level affirmations. She thought she was protected by praise, but praise without substance is just noise. And when the noise cleared, what was left was a performance that didn't resonate and a show that didn't matter. South Park has always been a mirror. Distorted, exaggerated, but undeniably revealing. And when that mirror turned toward Ironheart, it exposed everything Marvel and Dominique Thorne tried to ignore. You can't market your way into greatness. You can't shame audiences into caring, and you can't fake a connection. Dominique's biggest mistake wasn't starring in a bad show. It was pretending the show wasn't bad at all. Until she learns that humility beats hubris, she'll remain more of a cautionary tale than a leading lady. Because at the end of the day, the audience doesn't care about PR buzzwords. They care about good stories. And if Dominique Thorne ever wants a shot at redemption, it won't come from headlines. It'll come from proving through talent and growth that she belongs. Until then, the roast from South Park will stand as one of the most honest critiques she's ever received. One wrapped in jokes, but rooted in truth.